The first alien ships appeared without warning. They did not come with fire or noise. They came quietly, like shadows sliding over the sky. People stopped their cars and looked up. Birds scattered. Radios went silent for a moment, then returned with broken sound. Within 1 hour, every screen on Earth showed the same image, a calm alien figure speaking in clear, simple words. The message was short. The aliens said they had studied Earth for a long time. They said humans were divided, unstable, and dangerous to themselves. They said resistance was pointless. They promised order, safety, and survival. They did not threaten. They did not beg. They spoke as if the decision had already been made. Governments tried to respond. Some leaders shouted. Some begged. Some threatened war. None of it mattered. The alien ships moved once, and every military satellite went dark. Missiles failed to launch. Power grids flickered. The aliens did not destroy cities. They did not kill leaders on live broadcasts. They simply removed control. Within 3 days, world governments collapsed. Parliaments closed. Command centers went silent. Presidents and generals were taken away quietly, lifted into the sky by beams of soft white light. There were no public executions, no mass arrests. It was clean. Too clean. The aliens left local leaders in place. Mayors stayed. Police stations remained open. Hospitals kept running. Food still moved through cities. The aliens announced that daily life should continue. Anyone who caused violence would be stopped. Anyone who followed the rules would be left alone. Fear spread fast, but panic did not last long. People waited for something worse. It did not come. David Miller watched the broadcasts from his small apartment. He was a former schoolteacher, fired years earlier when his school closed due to budget cuts. He was not important. No one had ever watched him before. That was why he noticed something strange. The aliens watched cities, ports, factories, and borders. They did not watch people like him. David walked the streets during the early days of occupation. Alien drones floated above main roads, silent and smooth. They scanned crowds, traffic, and buildings. But in side streets and old neighborhoods there were gaps. Blind spots. The drones passed overhead without slowing. David felt the fear like everyone else, but under it, he felt confusion. If the aliens were so powerful, why were they not everywhere? Emma Wright noticed the same thing from a different angle. She was a city engineer who worked on water and power systems. When the aliens took control, they shut down several large power stations for efficiency review. Entire districts lost electricity for days. People complained, but the aliens did not respond. Emma and her team were told not to touch the systems. Alien monitors were placed at key sites. But again, there were gaps. Old pipes, backup lines, outdated control rooms were ignored. Emma did not panic. She studied the systems. She saw that the aliens only monitored main control points. They trusted their models. They believed that if the center was controlled, the edges did not matter. Emma quietly rerouted power using older methods. Manual switches. Local generators. Shared labor. Lights came back on in places the aliens had not approved. No alarm sounded. That scared her more than a warning would have. The aliens made announcements every few days. They spoke of stability and progress. They warned against rebellion, but the warnings were general, cold, and distant. They never named individuals. They never showed anger. David began talking to people again. Not as a leader, but as a teacher. He met neighbors in small groups. He asked questions. What skills do you have? What do you know how to fix? What can you teach someone else? People were afraid at first. Fear made them quiet. But David spoke calmly. He did not talk about fighting aliens. He talked about helping each other. About learning. About staying human. The aliens did not interfere. Emma noticed how fast people adapted. When supply trucks were delayed, communities shared food. When medicine ran low, doctors taught others basic care. People began walking instead of driving. Old bicycles returned to the streets. Small gardens appeared in empty spaces. The aliens tracked weapons. They tracked money. They tracked data. They did not track trust. David realized something important one evening as he watched an alien patrol pass by a group of children playing with chalk on the road. The patrol slowed, scanned, then moved on. The children were drawing maps, not of cities, but of routes, safe paths, quiet places, storage rooms, water points. No one had told them to stop. The aliens believed fear would control humans. They believed removing leaders would break direction. They believed order came from the top and obedience came from pressure. They did not understand something simple. Humans did not stop thinking when they were afraid. They thought differently. David and Emma met by chance at a damaged power station. She was inspecting a backup system. He was delivering food to a nearby shelter. They talked briefly, carefully. They did not exchange plans. They exchanged observations. "They're not watching enough," David said quietly. Emma nodded. "They're watching the wrong things." Neither of them smiled. Above them, an alien ship drifted slowly across the sky, silent and confident. Its sensors scanned the city, counting energy use, movement patterns, and communication signals. The data matched the models. Humans were quiet. Governments were gone. Resistance was low. The Alien Alliance recorded the operation as a success. They did not see the networks forming in kitchens, classrooms, and repair rooms. They did not hear the lessons whispered at night. They did not notice that fear was fading. They believed limited control was enough. That belief was their first mistake. Life did not stop after the governments fell. It changed shape. Without flags on screens or leaders giving orders, people waited at first. They listened for commands that never came. Days passed. Then weeks. The fear stayed, but it grew quieter, like a sound in the next room. Small groups began to form without planning. Neighbors knocked on doors they had ignored for years. Old arguments felt less important when food and water mattered more. People asked simple questions. Who has extra rice? Who can fix a pump? Who knows first aid? Emma Wright spent most of her days walking. Fuel was limited, and alien rules made vehicle travel difficult. She carried tools in a worn backpack and a small notebook filled with hand-drawn maps. She moved from block to block, checking old power lines and forgotten systems. The aliens controlled the main stations. They guarded large plants and modern grids. They trusted those systems because they were clean, central, and easy to read. Emma worked with what was old and messy. She found backup generators that had not been used in years. She showed people how to run them by hand. She taught groups how to balance power between homes instead of feeding everything into one point. Lights returned slowly, one building at a time. No alarms sounded. People did not cheer. They nodded. They learned. They remembered. David Miller no longer thought of himself as a teacher, but teaching followed him anyway. He sat on steps, in kitchens, in quiet rooms after sunset. He told stories. Not about aliens, but about people. He spoke about how cities once survived storms. How families survived wars. How learning was shared long before schools existed. He asked others to speak too. A mechanic explained engines using hand drawings. A nurse showed how to clean wounds safely. A farmer taught people how to grow food in small spaces. Children listened closely. The aliens tracked weapons. Every gun fired was recorded. Every explosive chemical was flagged. They tracked radio signals and large data bursts. They watched for armies. They did not watch a woman teaching children how to purify water using cloth and heat. They did not watch a man explaining math using chalk on a wall. They did not watch families cooking together and planning quietly. Old borders began to fade. Without governments, borders were just lines on old maps. People moved where help was needed. Skills traveled faster than fear. A message carried by a cyclist meant more than a broadcast. Emma noticed how fast people learned when there was no one above them. No waiting for approval. No forms. No delays. Decisions were made in minutes, not weeks. One evening, an alien patrol arrived at a neighborhood where Emma had helped restore power. The lights were on. Children were studying. Food was cooking. The patrol scanned the area. Energy use was within limits. No weapons were detected. No organized structure appeared. The aliens moved on. That night, Emma sat with the residents and explained how the system worked. She made sure everyone understood it, not just one person. "If I'm gone," she said, "you still need the lights." They nodded. David traveled less, but his words traveled more. People repeated his lessons in their own way. Stories changed, but the meaning stayed. Help each other. Learn everything. Stay flexible. The aliens issued new notices. They warned against unauthorized cooperation. The phrase confused people. Cooperation was all that remained. Some were taken away for clear defiance. Those who attacked drones. Those who tried to form armed groups. The aliens responded fast and hard to violence. Most people noticed something important. The aliens reacted only to force. So humans stopped using it. Workshops appeared in basements and old garages. Tools were shared. Broken machines were stripped and rebuilt into new ones. Nothing was wasted. Families became teams. Teams became networks. Emma met David again months later. This time not by chance. They sat in a quiet room lit by soft yellow bulbs. Around them, people worked, talked, and laughed quietly. There was no symbol, no uniform, no leader. "This isn't resistance," David said softly. Emma nodded. "It's survival." "And growth," he added. The aliens continued their scans. Reports showed stable populations. Low violence. Reduced production in some areas. Increased in others. The numbers balanced out. What the numbers did not show was trust. Humans were growing stronger in ways that could not be graphed. Skills spread horizontally, not upward. Knowledge belonged to everyone. Children learned faster than before. Adults changed roles without fear. Failure was accepted and corrected quickly. One alien observer noted an anomaly in a private report. Human efficiency was rising without centralized control. The data did not fit existing models. The note was archived and ignored. From orbit, Earth looked calm. On the ground, something quiet and powerful was taking shape. The change was slow at first, then sudden. Alien monitors noticed that human production was rising. Not weapons. Not machines of war. Food. Medicine. Repairs. Movement of goods between cities that were supposed to stay quiet. The numbers climbed beyond expected limits. The Alien Alliance responded the way it always did. They tightened rules. New limits were announced. Travel was restricted. Energy use was capped lower. Farming zones were reduced. Medical supply transfers required approval. Flight paths were narrowed into strict lanes watched by alien sensors. The aliens expected panic. They expected shortages, anger, and mistakes. They were wrong. People adjusted within days. Farmers met with doctors and engineers. Fields were reorganized. Crops that needed less water were chosen. Doctors taught farmers how to grow medical plants. Mechanics built simple tools to harvest faster without machines. When fuel was restricted, people walked more. When walking was too slow, they built carts. When carts broke, they fixed them with scrap. Nothing stopped. It only changed shape. Communication changed too. The aliens watched networks. They tracked signals, screens, and data streams. When limits were placed on digital communication, humans stopped using it. Messages moved by hand. Notes were written on paper and passed along with food shipments. Symbols were painted in small places, easy to miss, but clear to those who knew. Songs carried instructions hidden in rhythm and rhyme. Children learned them first and taught adults without knowing why. The aliens recorded a drop in electronic chatter and marked it as success. They did not hear the messages spoken face to face. Luke Harris was 22 years old and had never planned to be a hero. He flew cargo ships before the invasion, moving food and supplies between cities. After the aliens took control, most pilots were grounded. Luke was allowed to fly because transport was still needed. His ship was simple, old, and mostly ignored. Alien rules defined clear flight paths, exact speeds, and strict response times. Luke followed them at first. Then one day, everything went wrong. His transport ship was carrying medical supplies to a coastal city after a storm. Halfway through the flight, alien control sent an order. The route was closed. He was told to turn back immediately. Luke checked his fuel. Turning back meant he would not make it. The supplies would spoil. The city would wait weeks. He asked for permission to land at a nearby field. The request was denied. The alien system did not allow exceptions. Luke remembered something David Miller once said during a quiet talk months earlier. "Rules don't see people," David had said. "People do." Luke made his choice. He shut off the alien guidance system. The warning lights flared. Alerts filled the screen. Alien drones adjusted course to observe. Luke did not panic. He flew by sight, by instinct, and by memory. He dipped below cloud cover, cut speed, and followed the coastline at low altitude. The ship shook. The engines complained. But it held. Luke landed in an open field just outside the city. Farmers and doctors were already waiting. They unloaded the supplies by hand. No cheers. No speeches. Just fast, quiet work. Luke expected punishment. None came. The aliens recorded the event as a navigation error. A minor deviation corrected by system correction. No hostile intent detected. Luke flew again the next day. The story spread anyway. Not as rebellion. As possibility. Other pilots learned that the systems could be ignored. Drivers learned that routes could change. Doctors learned that supplies did not need permission if people moved fast enough. The aliens saw small rule breaks everywhere. Late deliveries. Slight energy spikes. Unexpected landings. They classified them as errors. Their model said humans would break rules only when desperate or angry. But these humans were calm, focused, careful. That did not fit. Emma Wright heard about Luke's landing through 3 different people, each telling it differently. She smiled for the first time in weeks.
"They're learning," she said.
David heard the story from children singing a new verse in an old song. He closed his eyes and listened. The message was clear. Do what works. The aliens increased patrols. More drones. More scans. More warnings. They did not change the rules themselves. They believed tighter control would fix the problem. Instead, humans adapted again. Work schedules shifted to avoid scans. Power use was spread thinner across time. People learned to disappear when watched and appear when needed. Luke met other pilots in quiet places. They shared tips without writing anything down. One taught another how to mask heat signatures. Another explained how to use terrain to hide movement. None of it looked like a plan. That was the point. An alien observer filed a report noting increased deviation frequency. Human compliance remained high, but outcomes differed from predictions. The observer suggested adaptive intent. The suggestion was rejected. Disobedience, the Alliance decided, was a flaw, a mistake, a sign of weakness that would fade under pressure. They did not understand that humans were not breaking rules to fight. They were breaking rules to live. Luke flew again under a red sky at sunset. Below him, lights flickered on in patterns the aliens could not read. Somewhere on the ground, Emma adjusted a system she had built with 10 other people. Somewhere else, David told a story to a group that did not call itself a group. The aliens watched the planet and saw stability. They missed the meaning. They thought disobedience was an error. That belief became their second mistake. The quiet connections finally met each other. For a long time, human groups worked close to home. They shared food, skills, and ideas inside towns and cities. They avoided attention. They stayed small. But small things spread when they are useful. A mechanic taught a traveler how to fix a pump. That traveler taught someone else weeks later in another place. A doctor shared a method for saving medicine. A farmer shared seeds that grew fast and needed little water. Slowly, these ideas crossed oceans and mountains. People did not call it a network. It had no center, no name. It was simply people choosing to help and learn. The aliens noticed the change when patterns stopped repeating. Their systems watched human behavior and searched for stability. They expected habits to form. They expected routines. Instead, the routines changed every few days. Energy use rose one week, fell the next, then spread thin across time. Travel routes appeared, vanished, and reappeared somewhere else. Communication signals came and went without rhythm. The Alien Alliance decided it was time for full control. They announced a new phase. All local authority would be replaced. All systems would be unified under alien management. Human decision-making would be limited to personal matters only. Production, travel, education, and repair would follow one system, one schedule, one plan. The announcement was calm and firm. The aliens expected fear. They expected collapse. What followed confused them. The moment full control began, systems failed. Not from attack, from absence. Alien control centers tried to connect to power systems that were no longer there. The main grids were quiet, but smaller systems continued to work on their own. Water flowed through rerouted pipes. Lights stayed on in unexpected places. Emma Wright had helped design many of those systems. They were simple by choice. No screens. No central controls. Just switches, wheels, and shared rules written on paper. If one part broke, people changed plans. Emma never gave the same instructions twice. She taught ideas, not steps. If this fails, she told groups, do something else. When alien systems tried to take over, there was nothing to take. Education changed too. Alien programs replaced schools with basic learning centers controlled by schedules. But learning had already moved. David Miller helped shape that shift. He did not lead. He listened. People came together to solve problems. David suggested something old and simple. Councils. Not governments. Not rulers. Just circles of people who trusted each other. No ranks. No titles. Each council made choices for a short time. When the problem changed, the council changed too. Anyone could speak. Anyone could leave. Decisions were not perfect, but they were fast. The aliens tried to track leaders. They found none. They tried to track meetings. They found many, but none repeated. They tried to predict outcomes. The models failed. Across continents, human groups began to sense each other. Not through official channels, but through shared results. A solution in one place appeared in another without explanation. A mistake made in one city was avoided in the next. The aliens increased pressure. More patrols. More rules. More forced connections. Humans responded by changing again. Plans were made daily, sometimes hourly. What worked yesterday was dropped today. What failed last week was tried again in a new way. Luke Harris noticed it in the skies. Flight paths became suggestions. Pilots shared signals using lights and timing instead of systems. If one route was blocked, 3 others appeared. Emma noticed it in the streets. Tools were redesigned to avoid alien materials. Devices worked without power grids. People learned to repair everything themselves. David noticed it in people. Fear no longer ruled choices.
Curiosity did.
The Alien Alliance began to argue. Some believed humans were hiding a central command. Others believed the behavior was chaos that would burn out. A few suggested that human choice itself was the problem. Their models required fixed behavior. Humans refused to give it. An alien council reviewed the data. Human resistance was low. Violence was rare. Compliance appeared high. Yet control was slipping. How do they coordinate? One observer asked.
They don't, another replied.
That answer was rejected. Emma stood on a rooftop one night, looking at a city that should not have worked. Lights moved in soft waves as people adjusted use together. No system controlled it. Only agreement. David sat with a group that would exist only for one evening. They solved a food problem, shared what they knew, then went home. The group would not meet again. Luke landed his ship on a road cleared by hand. Supplies moved quickly. By morning, the road was gone again. The aliens watched and recorded everything. They still did not understand. Humans were not winning by force. They were winning by choice. Every attempt at full control pushed humans further from predictability. The more the aliens tightened their grip, the more humans slipped through it. The alliance models broke one by one. For the first time, alien records used a new phrase. Unstable outcome. Not because humans were weak, but because they would not stop choosing differently. The decision was made far from Earth, in a place humans would never see. The Alien Alliance reviewed its final reports. Control costs were rising. Prediction failure was spreading. Systems designed to manage thousands of worlds were struggling with one: Earth. The humans were not winning battles. They were not destroying ships. They were not attacking command centers. But the Alliance was losing something more important: certainty. Every cycle, new rules produced new human behavior. Every model update failed faster than the last. Control required more resources than expected, and still the outcome could not be fixed. The Alliance chose withdrawal. The order was quiet. No announcement was made to Earth. Alien ships began to leave orbit in small groups. Drones shut down and fell harmlessly into oceans and empty land. Control systems disconnected without warning. Before leaving, the aliens sealed their records. Earth was labeled carefully. Not hostile, not primitive, not powerful, dangerous, variable. The reason was simple. Humans could not be forced into one future. On Earth, people noticed the change slowly. The sky grew quieter. Patrols stopped appearing. Systems, once blocked, began to work without interference. For days, people waited, unsure if this was another test. Then a child pointed at the sky and asked where the lights had gone. No one answered. Emma Wright stood in the middle of a power station that no longer needed hiding. She removed covers, opened lines, and connected systems openly for the first time in years. People came to help without fear. No one asked for permission. The lights stayed on. Across cities and fields, humans stepped into the open. Workshops moved above ground. Schools returned to old buildings, then spread into parks and streets. Councils formed not to rule, but to rebuild. David Miller watched a group of children sitting in a circle under a tree. There was no screen, no schedule. One child asked a question. Another answered. A third argued. David smiled. Learning had returned to its natural place. People talked about the future without whispering. Plans were written on walls, then changed. No one expected perfection. They expected effort. Old borders did not return. They were remembered, but no longer obeyed. Help moved where it was needed. Skills mattered more than titles. Luke Harris flew his ship one last time under alien rules. Then he turned the system off and never turned it back on. Airspace became shared space. Pilots taught others. The sky belonged to everyone again. Emma stood on a hill one night and looked up. The stars were clear. No shadows moved between them. No one owned the sky. She thought about how close everything had come to breaking. David thought about the aliens and their mistake. They believed control created order. Humans had proven something else. Order could grow from trust. Strength could grow from sharing. The future did not need permission. Earth began to change openly now. Cities were rebuilt with flexibility in mind. Systems were designed to bend, not lock. Children were taught how to question before they were taught how to follow. No monument was built to mark the victory. None was needed. Far away, in sealed alien archives, Earth's record remained untouched. A warning to others who might try the same path. Do not try to own choice. Humans had changed the world without conquering it. Because when control mattered more than people, control failed. And people endured.